is what So here is what speaker view and gallery view look like. To change between the two, click view in the top right corner and then select speaker or gallery.
Así es como se ve en la vista del orador y la vista de galería. Para cambiar entre las haga en ver o view en la esquina superior derecha y luego seleccione orador o galería o speaker or gallery.
The materials you will need are paper, pencil, or colored pencils. And optionally, it would be great if you had paper plate, dry yard scraps, wet yard scraps, water, and a fork.
Los materiales que necesitan durante este taller son papel, lápiz y lápices de colores. Y también opcionalmente plato de papel, restos de jardín secos y mojados, agua y un tenedor.
So I am Melissa, and I am the Summer Farm to School intern at Georgia Organics. I'm in my second year of my Master of Public Health program at Emory University.
Soy Melissa y estoy trabajando con el equipo de Farm to School en Georgia Organics. Estoy en mi segundo año de mi programa de maestría de la salud pública en la Universidad Emory. And I'm Kimberly Koogler, the Farm to School coordinator at Georgia Organics. I am working with Melissa, or I'm presenting with Melissa today, and I'll be translating what she says into Spanish. Me llamo Kimberly Koogler y soy la coordinadora de Farm to School en Georgia Organics. Voy a presentar con Melissa y traducir lo que ella dice al español.
So in our portion of the presentation, we're going to build our knowledge about compost, specifically what compost is, how it happens, and why we might want to help it happen.
Durante nuestra parte de la presentación vamos a expandir nuestro conocimiento del compostaje. ¿Qué es el compost? ¿Cómo sucede el compostaje? ¿Y por qué queremos ayudar a que suceda?
Then we're going to build our composting skills, specifically how to build the right space and how to provide the right ingredients.
Luego vamos a expandir nuestras habilidades para hacer compost. Cómo crear el espacio adecuado y cómo proporcionar los ingredientes necesarios.
So please respond to the poll that pops up on your screen. On a scale from 1 to 5, how confident do you feel about composting in your home or school garden?
Ok. Por favor, responda a la encuesta que aparece en su pantalla. En una escala del 1 al 5, ¿qué tan seguros se sienten acerca del compostaje o en su hogar o en el jardín de la escuela?
All right, you've got about 6.
Right now, we're a little over 73% with the poll.
Perfect. As these votes coming in, I'm seeing that there's so much knowledge in the room with us today. So as a reminder, please use the chat to share and ask questions to the full group throughout the workshop today.
Hay tanto conocimiento aquí entre nosotros hoy. Para recordarles, por favor, usen el chat para compartir con el grupo entero durante el taller de hoy.
All right, hey y'all, I'm Jenna Mobley. See lots of familiar faces and names on here. I've been a public school teacher in Atlanta for 12 years with experience teaching 1st through 4th grades, including EIP, or Early Intervention Program, and ESOL, English as a Second Language.
Junto con el programa de intervención temprana e inglés como segundo idioma.
In my portion of the presentation, I will be teaching you as if you are my students and demonstrating how this same content about compost could be presented to a classroom of students, including those that are learning English as a second language. And I'll be using the 10 key components of SDAIE, which is Specially Designed Academic Instruction in English.
Durante mi parte de la presentación, les voy a enseñar a ustedes como si fueran mis propios estudiantes y voy a demostrar cómo este tema del compostaje se podría enseñar a una clase de estudiantes, incluidos los estudiantes del idioma inglés, utilizando los 10 componentes clave de la especialmente diseñada instrucción académica en inglés, o Specially Designed Academic Instruction in English.
At the end of this workshop, we will debrief what you experienced as students and name the 10 key components so you can apply them to your lessons throughout the school year.
Al final de este taller, analizaremos lo que experimentaron ustedes como estudiantes y nombraremos los 10 componentes clave para que puedan aplicarlos a sus lecciones durante todo el año.
Please respond on the poll that pops up on your screen. On a scale from 1 to 5, how confident do you feel about teaching English language learners in your classroom?
A la encuesta que aparece en su pantalla. En una escala del 1 al 5, ¿qué tan seguros se sienten al enseñar a estudiantes de inglés en sus clases?
All right, there seems to be a lot of teachers with diverse experience in the Zoom room with us today. So again, please use the chat to share any of your experiences and to ask questions to the full group throughout the workshop today.
Hay tantos maestros y maestras con diversas experiencias aquí con nosotros hoy. Para recordarles de nuevo, por favor, usen el chat para hacer preguntas y compartir sus experiencias con el grupo entero durante el taller de hoy.
Okay, let's get started. Welcome to class. We are so happy you're here. I'd love to start by hearing from everyone. When I say go, in the chat box, please share your name and your one favorite food. One favorite food. You may share your response in any language with the name of the food or by describing the food. There are no right or wrong answers. Your name and your one favorite food in the chat, you may go. Great job. Right, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. Thank you everyone for sharing. Today we are going to learn about some hungry friends that live in our soil and about all of their favorite foods. First, think on your own. Who lives in our soil? When I say go, on your paper, with your pencils, draw or write your ideas of who lives in our soil. You may look up here for some ideas. You may go. Okay, 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. When I say go, change Zoom to gallery mode. Then give me a thumbs up in the camera when you're ready. Thank you, Jessica, for your thumbs up. Thank you, Monica, for your thumbs up. That's how I know that you're ready. Thank you, Jessica Eves, as well as Jessica Roberts. When I say go, hold your paper up to the camera so you can see what others drew or wrote. You may go. Wonderful. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Jessica Roberts and Jessica Eves. Thank you, Anne. 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. When I say go, change Zoom to speaker mode. Give me a thumbs up when you are in speaker mode. You may go. Thank you, Kim. Thank you, Monica. Okay, we look ready. Today, we are going to learn who lives in our soil, what they eat, why they are so special, and how we can help them.
So compost is rich, dark brown soil, smells like earth, and crumbles in your hand. It's full of nutrients that plants need to grow, and it's the result of decomposition, or the rotting, decay, or breaking down of one's living things.
El compost es suelo rico de color marrón oscuro que huele a la tierra y se desmorona en la mano. Está lleno de nutrientes que las plantas necesitan para crecer. El compost es el resultado de la descomposición, es decir, la pudrición o reducción de los cuerpos de organismos a formas más simples.
So decomposition happens when decomposers help break down organic material like food scraps and yard waste. We can classify them into 2 categories based on how they break down organic material, physical and chemical.
La descomposición ocurre cuando los descomponedores ayudan a descomponer material orgánico como los restos de comida y desperdicios del jardín. Podemos clasificar a los descomponedores en 2 categorías, basado en cómo descomponen el material orgánico. Puede ser químico o físico.
All right, so chemical decomposers use chemicals in their body to break down organic matter, kind of like how our stomach acids dissolve food, the food that we eat. So these are mostly microorganisms that cannot be seen without a microscope. These are things like bacteria, protozoa, and fungi.
Los descomponedores químicos usan químicas dentro de sus cuerpos para descomponer materia orgánica, parecido a como el ácido dentro de nuestros estómagos disuelve lo que comemos. Estos son microorganismos que en su mayoría no se pueden ver sin microscopio, como bacterias, protozoos y hongos.
So bacteria make up most of the microorganisms found in your compost, and they do most of the decomposition work. As they break down material, they give off heat, which warms up the compost and attracts other heat-loving organisms that assist with the decomposition process.
Las bacterias constituyen la mayoría de los microorganismos en el compost y descomposición. Descomponen los materiales, emiten calor, calientan el compost y atraen a otros organismos amantes del calor también, que también ayudan en el proceso de la descomposición.
So physical decomposers chew, grind, and squeeze materials into smaller pieces, like how we use our teeth to break up food. They digest the food and excrete waste products that are then broken down even further by the chemical decomposers. Physical decomposers are mostly macroorganisms, and they can be seen without a microscope. These are things like worms, mites, flies, and snails.
Los descomponedores físicos mastican, muelen y aprietan los materiales en pedazos más pequeños, parecido a como nosotros usamos nuestros dientes para digieren el material y excretan Y esos desechos que excretan son descompuestos aún más por los descomponedores químicos.
So worms, as you can see here, they perform a lot of the decomposition work among the macroorganisms. They dig tunnels and they consume, digest, and excrete the decomposing materials. The spaces that the worms create as they move through the compost pile allows water, air, and nutrients to circulate, creating the necessary conditions that many of the other organisms need to thrive.
Entre los macroorganismos, las lombrices hacen mucho de la descomposición. Cavan túneles y comen, digieren y excretan los materiales. Los espacios que crean las lombrices mientras que se mueven por la pila de compost dejan que circulen el aire, el agua y los nutrientes, creando las condiciones necesarias para que los otros organismos prosperen.
So to review, chemical decomposers like bacteria and physical decomposers like worms break down or decompose organic matter. The result of this decomposition is nutrient-rich soil or compost that plants need to grow.
Para repasar, los descomponedores químicos como las bacterias y los descomponedores físicos como las lombrices descomponen la materia orgánica. El resultado de esta descomposición es el compost, o suelo rico en nutrientes que las plantas necesitan para crecer.
All right, students. During our gallery walk, you all shared all different types of animals that live in our soil. I saw ants and worms and spiders. Today, we are going to learn about 3 types of animals that live in the soil and have a very special job. First, fungus. Stay on mute and repeat after me. Fun. Gus. Fungus. One type of fungus is a mushroom, like you can see here, or a mushroom like you can see here, or like you can see here on my shirt. When I say fungus, you say fungus and use your body to show me a mushroom. Fungus. Great job. Second, bacteria. Stay on mute and repeat after me. Back. Bacteria. Bacteria are so small you can only see them with a magnifying glass. When I say bacteria, you say bacteria and use your body to show me a microscope. Bacteria. Third, invertebrates. Repeat after me. Stay on mute and repeat after me. Invertebrates. One type of invertebrate is a worm. When I say invertebrate, you say invertebrate and use your body to wiggle like a worm. Invertebrate. Nice job. Now, when I say go, in the chat, type the first letter sound you hear in the word fungus. You may go. Fungus. What letter sound do you hear? Fungus. Great job. It's an F. Now we can make an F in sign language just like this. Show me on your hands an F in sign language. When I say go, in the chat, type the first letter sound you hear in the word bacteria. You may go. B, bacteria. B. Good, that's a B, and we can make a B in sign language just like this. Show me your B's on your hands. When I say go, in the chat, type the first letter sound you hear in the word invertebrates. You may go. Invertebrates. Great job. That is an I. And show me an I on your hands in sign language. We can remember these 3 types of animals that live in this soil and have a special job with F, B, I. Stay on mute and repeat after me. F, B, I. All right, now I need your help singing a song about the F, B, I. Every line will start with F, B, I. Sing and do the sign language with me. Show me on your thumbs. Are you ready to try it? All right, let's go. The FBI, whenever something dies, the FBI is there on the scene. The FBI is working overtime. The FBI to pick those bones clean. Now stay on mute and repeat after me. Fungus, bacteria, invertebrates, the FBI. Let's do it one more time. Are you ready? From the beginning, the FBI is whenever something dies. The FBI is there on the scene. The FBI is working overtime. The FBI to pick those bones clean. Fungus, bacteria, invertebrates, the FBI. Nice job. Oh, and one note before we transition back to Kimberly and Melissa's section. I have realized that when you have the speaker view on, you are just looking at a Georgia Organics logo because of where their mic is coming from. To see them up close, if you go to both of them in the video where it says Kimberly Delladonna and click on the 3 dots at the top, you can press the button that says pin, and you can pin their video so it's the only one you see, even though they are not the speaker. If you have any questions about that as they present, feel free to chat to all of us or chat to me and I can help you figure it out. Sorry for that technical difficulty. Okay, back over to you, Kimberly and Melissa.
Awesome. Thank you, Jenna. So I once heard a friend say that they think it's so funny when someone says that they compost. We don't compost. The decomposers compost.
Una vez, una amiga me dijo que lo cree muy chistoso cuando la gente dice que hace compost. Nosotros no hacemos el compost, los descomponedores lo hacen.
But we can help this decomposition process happen by building the right space and providing the right ingredients. Then we get the benefit of the nutrient-rich compost to add to our garden.
Pero sí podemos ayudar a que suceda este proceso de descomposición. Lo que podemos hacer es crear el espacio adecuado y proporcionar los ingredientes necesarios. Luego aprovecharemos del compost rico en nutrientes que podemos usar en el jardín.
So, write in the chat, why are you interested in getting involved with composting? What do you want to compost, or why do you want to compost for your garden?
Escriban en el chat por qué le interesa el compostaje y por qué quiere usted compost para su jardín.
Right, Jenna is interested in composting because she wants to grow bigger and better tomatoes. Same, Jenna.
Good reason.
Monica says to show the kids how to make soil and to watch things break down. Yeah, definitely. Jill says it's great for the garden. Also great. Jessica has worm bins at the school. Oh, that's awesome, to show how important worms are to growing our food. Yeah, so I'm seeing a lot of school gardens, and also definitely something good to do with your food garbage or food waste. Awesome. So composting is really important to add to your garden for 3 reasons. So 1, it improves the soil. Adding compost to your soil helps loosen the compacted heavy soils like the clay soils that we have here. to help your roots grow deeper in the soil and also to access really important nutrients and help soil hold water.
El compost es importante para el jardín porque mejora el suelo. Al agregar compost ayuda a aflojar los suelos pesados y compactados como los suelos arcillosos que tenemos aquí en Georgia y ayuda a que las raíces de las plantas puedan crecer más profundo para acceder a nutrientes importantes. También el compostaje ayuda a que el suelo pueda retener agua.
Compost reduces the need for fertilizers. So compost contains so many macronutrients and micronutrients, which are released slowly and stay in the soil longer than synthetic fertilizers.
El compostaje reduce la necesidad de fertilizantes. El compost contiene muchos macronutrientes y micronutrientes que se dispersan lentamente en el suelo y permanecen en el suelo más tiempo que los fertilizantes sintéticos.
Also, when we're adding the right ingredients to the right space that we created, we're also diverting landfill waste. So much of our food scraps and yard waste can be added to our compost to decompose instead of being thrown out or sent to landfill. So when an organic material like food scraps or yard waste breaks down without air or anaerobically in a landfill, it produces methane gas, which is a potent greenhouse gas that's 21 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So composting reduces the amount of organic material that goes into the landfill and thereby reduces the pollution that they create.
Además, cuando agregamos los ingredientes necesarios al espacio adecuado que creamos, estamos desviando los residuos del vertedero. El compostaje desvía los desechos y la basura del vertedero. Cuando materiales orgánicos como restos de comida y desperdicios de jardín se descomponen anaeróbicamente o sin aire, en un vertedero se produce gas metano, lo que es un potente gas de efecto invernadero que es 21 veces más potente que el dióxido de carbono. El compostaje reduce la cantidad de materia orgánica que termina en los vertederos y la contaminación que estos generan.
Okay, so now we know who lives in our soil: the fungus, bacteria, and invertebrates, the FBI. But what do they do? What is their special job? Let's read some of Diary of a Worm about a worm, an invertebrate. And while we read, put your finger on your ear if you think you hear a verb or an action word. And for today, we will also put those verbs in the chat. When you hear a verb or an action word, put your finger on your ear if you think you hear, and also put your answers in the chat. Let's read. Diary of a Worm. Mom says there are 3 things I should always remember. The earth gives us everything we need. When we dig tunnels, we help take care of the earth. Good. Remember to put them in the chat too. What are the action words? Never bother Daddy when he's eating the newspaper. Good. I see some action words coming into the chat. See if you can catch them all. I forgot my lunch today. I got so hungry that I ate my homework. Mom says I have to stop eating so much garbage before I go to bed. Good at all these action words in the chat. Today we made macaroni necklaces in art class. I brought mine home and we ate it for dinner. Great job on our action words. Look at all of these words you guys came up with all by yourself. Wow. Now this is a fiction book, which means that some of it is made up. That is different from a non-fiction book that has facts. This is a fiction book or a storybook. So let's look at our list of verbs and decide which of these do not match our observations. Which of these are not true? Show me on your thumbs. Have you observed a worm digging? Yeah, that's something they do. Cool. What about, do we think a worm can remember? Maybe we're not sure about that one. We haven't observed it, but it's possible, so we're going to leave that one on our wonder wall. What about says? Can a worm talk from your observations? I see lots of thumbs down. They can't say anything. What about help? Show me on your thumbs. Do you think worms can help? Good. Now, many of these words are the same. We group together words that are similar. Eat, eating, and ate. We saw these words a lot. Because this is one of the most important jobs that our decomposers do. They eat. If they did it before, they ate. And if they're doing it now, they are eating. So now we know what decomposers do. They eat. Stay on mute and join me. Decomposers go munch, 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 munch. Use your body and show me. Munch, 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 munch. Good job. When they munch, they do something really special. It's a really big word. It's called decomposition. Stay on mute and join me. And use your body to do the decomposition disco. It goes like this. Decomposition, 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 decomposition. Great job with that big word. And that big word means they break things down. They break down big things into little things. So stay on mute, use your body, and join me. They break down, they break down, they break down, they break down. Nice job. Let's try it all together. Our decomposers go munch, 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 munch. And when they do, they are doing a big word called decomposition, 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 decomposition. And that means they break down, they break down, they break down, they break down. Nice job. And when they break those big things into teeny tiny little things, that's when they make compost. Compost is so special. It's dark, it smells like earth, it crumbles in your hand, and it's full of nutrients that our plants need to grow. Repeat after me, compost. It is so special. I can't wait to learn more.
So next we're going to learn how to create compost by building the right space and providing the right ingredients for decomposition to occur.
Ahora vamos a aprender a hacer compost por medio de crear el espacio adecuado y proporcionar los ingredientes necesarios para que ocurra la descomposición.
To remember, we will have many rules of three.
Para recordar, tenemos varias reglas de tres.
So first, we're going to learn how to build the right space. The first rule of three applies to the volume. Your pile should be large enough to maintain heat, which means it should be a minimum of 3 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet or 1 cubic yard. And this is what that looks like on measuring tape. Quite large.
Primero vamos a aprender a crear el espacio apropiado. La primera regla de tres tiene que ver con el volumen. La pila de compost debe ser lo suficientemente grande para mantener el calor, lo que quiere decir que debe ser al mínimo de 1 yarda cúbica o 3 pies por 3 pies por 3 pies.
So let's take a look at 4 common ways to build a 3 by 3 by 3 area for composting. Thus can be purchased, but you can also easily build any of these with the material you have around your home.
Veamos 4 maneras comunes para construir un área de 3 pies por 3 pies por 3 pies para el compostaje. Algunas cosas se pueden comprar, pero también se pueden utilizar cosas que ya hay alrededor de la casa.
So while we present the common backyard composters, write in the chat box, have you used any of these types of composting systems? What has worked for you, what hasn't, and why?
Mientras que presentamos los compostadores caseros más comunes, escriban en el chat. ¿Han usado ustedes uno de estos compostadores o sistemas de compostaje? ¿Qué es lo que ha funcionado para usted y lo que no ha funcionado y por qué?
All right, so a compost pile is one of the most basic methods. It requires an aerating tool like a spade or a pitchfork to move material from the outside to the inside and vice versa. They're open to the elements, so sometimes they can invite some unwanted guests.
Una pila de compost es uno de los métodos más básicos. Este método requiere una herramienta como pala o tridente para mover el material desde afuera para adentro y viceversa. La pila de compost está expuesta a los elementos y por lo tanto puede atraer algunas criaturas no deseadas.
So stationary bins, as you can see on the screen, are an outdoor container with a lid. Unlike open pile stationary bins, better protect your compost from pests, rodents, and the elements. However, they are sometimes difficult to get material out of and challenging to turn because of their design.
Los compostadores estacionarios se guardan afuera y tienen tapas. A diferencia de pilas abiertas, los contenedores estacionarios protegen el compost de plagas, roedores y los elementos. Sin embargo, puede ser difícil sacar el material y voltear el compost por dentro debido a su diseño.
The third type of composter is a tumbler composter. These solve the problems of turning and accessibility that stationary bins have. So basically you fill the bin with your materials, you turn the container every few days, and you wait. You generally can't continuously add material to the bin. So once it's full, you'll need to wait for it to compost. And you may lack some of the physical decomposers because the bin is raised above the ground.
Los compostadores volteadores resuelven los problemas de giro y accesibilidad de los contenedores estacionarios. Se llena el compostador con los materiales, se lo voltea cada pocos días y se espera hasta que todo se descomponga. No se puede agregar material continuamente al contenedor. Es decir, una vez que esté lleno, se debe esperar a que se convierta en compost. Y también carece de descomponedores físicos porque el contenedor está elevado en vez de estar en el suelo.
And finally, worm composting or vermicomposting relies on worms to digest organic material into compost. So this produces odor-free compost, and worm bins can be stored indoors or outdoors. The worms convert the organic material into worm castings or worm poop. And the ideal worm to use for vermicomposting is the red wiggler, which is also known as the trout worm or the manure worm.
El vermicompostaje se basa en la digestión de materia orgánica por las lombrices. Produce el compost sin olor. Los contenedores de lombriz se pueden guardar o adentro o afuera. Las lombrices convierten el material orgánico en excrementos. La lombriz ideal para este sistema de compostaje se llama red wiggler, también conocida como gusano de trucha o gusano de estiércol.
Okay, so now while Kimberly and Melissa are resetting the camera, we're gonna look at the chat and see what everyone has to say about their favorite common backyard composters. So let's see here. Monica has a stationary bin at school and had a worm bin in her classroom. Sandra has a tumbling bin that can be hard to turn and sometimes hold water. I also have that same issue with my tumbling bin as well. Jenna has a compost pile for garden scraps, no cafeteria scraps, and in her opinion, it works pretty well. And let's see here. Okay, well, as the options keep coming in, we want to encourage you, if you see someone in the chat who has a really great option in terms of their composting, please reach out to them, and let's make sure that we can get our community and our networking really strong as we try to find best ways to compost with each other.
So let's take a closer look at stationary composters and how to build your own. So I'm going to show you 2 examples of stationary bins that are really easy to make and that I've made here in my backyard. The composting handbook includes instructions for building your own bin, as well as links to where to purchase pre-made bins as well.
Miremos más de cerca a un compostador estacionario y cómo se puede construir uno suyo. Melissa nos va a mostrar 2 ejemplos que ella misma construyó. La guía de compostaje incluye instrucciones para construir su propio compostador, además de algunos enlaces donde se pueden comprar compostadores ya hechos.
All right, so using old chicken wire, bamboo, and wood that we have laying around the house, I created this small stationary chicken wire compost bin. So this is a really nice design because it keeps vermin, rodents out, yet leaves space for our physical decomposers to access waste and also aerate the compost.
Hice este compostador de alambre de gallinero, usando materiales viejos que ya teníamos en la casa. Alambre de gallinero, bambú y madera. Este diseño funciona bien porque no deja entrar alimañas y también airea el compost mientras que deja espacio para que los descomponedores físicos puedan acceder los desechos.
So all I did to create this was cut a sheet of chicken wire. I staked the bamboo, as you can see here, through the chicken wire and into the ground. And then I twisted the ends of that around each other. And then I took pieces of wood and put those on top.
Todo lo que hice para crear este compostador fue cortar un pedazo de alambre de gallinero, estacar el bambú por el alambre en el suelo y retorcer los extremos del alambre juntos y colocar pedazos de madera encima.
So this over here is a very easy at-home bin to make. So this is the plastic bin composter. So basically, I used a plastic bin with a tight-fitting lid, and it is one that is higher than 2 feet tall.
Ok, este es un compostador casero común, el contenedor plástico. Utilicé un contenedor plástico más alto de 2 pies con una tapa ajustada.
All right, so I used a drill to make holes or on the sides, on the top, and on the bottom for aeration. So you can also use a knife to puncture as well.
Usé un taladro para hacer agujeros de 1 a 2 pulgadas de distancia por todos lados del contenedor para la aireación. Se podría usar también un cuchillo para cortar los agujeros.
All right, so I then covered the bottom 1/8 of the bin with dried leaves.
Luego le eché hojas secas al contenedor hasta estar 1/8 lleno.
And so all that I need to do now is to add our dirt or compost on top of the leaves until the container is about half of the way full.
Ok, ahora voy a agregar suelo encima de las hojas hasta que el contenedor esté medio lleno.
All right, so we now have so many options for building the right space for our compost. Your space for composting could be a pile, it could be a tumbler, a worm bin, a stationary bin made of chicken wire, or a plastic tub. But we always want to remember our first rule of 3, which is that your pile should be 3 by 3 by 3, so it's large enough to maintain.
Para revisar, ya tenemos varias opciones para crear el espacio adecuado para el compostaje. Podría ser una pila, una simple pila de compost, un compostador volteador, uno de vermicompostaje o un contenedor estacionario hecho de alambre de gallinero o plástico. Recuerden la primera de las reglas de 3. La pila de compost debe ser por lo menos 3 pies por 3 pies por 3 pies para que sea lo suficientemente grande para mantener el calor.
All right. So now we know who lives in our soil. It's the fungus, bacteria, invertebrates, the F. And we know about their special job. The FBI go munch, 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 munch. And that's called decomposition, 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 decomposition. Which means they break down, they break down, they break down, they break down. So now, how can we help them do this very important job of creating compost, our special compost? Well, like all living things, the FBI, the decomposers, need a home, food, water, and air. All living things everywhere need a home, food, water, and air. You can join me on that one. Follow me. All living things everywhere need home, food, water, and air. All living things everywhere need home, food, water, and air. Nice work. So we can build them a home, we can give them food, we can give them water, and we can give it air. But what kind of food do decomposers like? Decomposers like to eat anything that grows from the garden. To remember, we can say, if it grows, it goes in the compost. You can see that here. If it grows, it goes. Nice job. And decomposers like a special recipe. They like eating 2 parts of dry food from the garden and 1 part wet food from the garden. And then we add it to the pot and let it all rot for compost soup. Let's read in this book some of the different foods from the garden that our decomposers like to eat. Apple cores, bananas bruised, dirt clods crumbled, fruit pulp left behind all mushed. Grass clippings and an insect or 2. And you can help me with this one. Add it to the pot and let it all rot for compost soup. Save jack-o'-lanterns and kitchen scraps. Mulch removed from garden beds, nutshells and paper shreds. Underbrush prunings and vegetable trimmings. Wiggly worms with compost cravings, Christmas tree needles and yellow pine shavings. And zinnia heads from flower beds whose blooming days are through. And join me on this one. Add it to the pot and let it all rot for compost soup. Then moisten, that's the water. Toss lightly, that's the air. Cover and let brew. And here you can see it's home. And when the cooking is complete, Mother Earth will have a treat, dark and crumbly, rich and sweet. Now open the pot and what have you got? Compost stew. So let's make a home and some compost stew. We are going to make a small version, so that each of you can be a part of making it. If you have your materials, first you need your paper plate. This will be our decomposer's home for a mini compost. And then we need its food. We need 2 parts of dry materials from the garden. I'll show you what I have. I have leaves and twigs and little dried seed pods. Here's some hay, some twigs. It's not that much. There we go. And then we know that our compost wants 1 part wet. There is half as much wet as there is dry. So we'll add just a little bit of green wet ingredients to our recipe for our decomposers. Then we know that they like a little bit of our food, some of our food that we saw in the book. So we could add maybe a tomato that something else ate first. We could add a banana peel, or maybe a little bit of celery that we're done eating. Right on top. That's a lot of food for our decomposers. They won't be hungry. So we have home, food. It's time for water. Let's get our water out. If you have your spray bottle with you, give them a little bit of water. 2 spritzes for us. And the last thing they need is air. They have their home, food, water, and air. And to help them get air, we could give them a little blow, just like the wind will. We can also turn our compost with a fork. We're going to get some air underneath. This allows that air to get in every part of our compost cake. Now you have made the perfect mini home for compost. You have the home, food, water, and air. Now as a class, we will make a big compost for our decomposers.
Awesome. So the next rule of 3 applies to the 3 basic ingredients that your pile is going to need. Jenna already spoke to some, but we're going to talk about air, moisture, and food.
La siguiente regla de 3 tiene que ver con los 3 ingredientes básicos necesarios: el aire, la humedad, y la comida.
So like us, decomposers need oxygen. So it's very important to turn or aerate your compost every week so that oxygen is introduced. Turning your pile will prevent unfinished, smelly compost and harmful microbes and weed seeds to survive.
Así como nosotros, los descomponedores necesitan oxígeno. Así que es muy importante voltear su compost cada semana para que entre el oxígeno. Voltear la pila ayudará a que el compost termine y evitará que huela feo. Y también evitará que sobrevivan semillas de malas hierbas o microbios dañinos.
So decomposers also need moisture. So your compost should be about as moist as a wrung out sponge. Piles that are too dry are going to decompose slowly, and piles that are too wet will also produce a foul odor.
Los descomponedores necesitan humedad. El compost debe estar tan húmedo como una esponja escurrida. Las pilas de compost demasiado secas se descomponen muy lentamente y las pilas que están demasiado mojadas producen un olor muy feo.
And of course, you need food for your decomposers.
Y claro que los descomponedores también necesitan comida.
So much like us, decomposers need a balanced diet to perform optimally. There are 2 kinds of organic materials that we put into our compost, greens and browns. Our next rule of three refers to the 3 parts of the compost recipe.
Al igual que nosotros, los descomponedores necesitan una dieta balanceada para funcionar de manera óptima. Hay 2 tipos de materia orgánica que se agregan al compost, los verdes y los marrones. La siguiente regla de 3 se refiere a las 3 partes de nuestra receta de compost.
All right, so you should add 1 part of green nitrogen-rich material to every 2 parts of brown carbon-rich material.
Se debe agregar una parte de material verde rico en nitrógeno por cada 2 partes de material marrón que contiene carbono.
So browns are high in carbon. Most brown materials are woody, chunky, dry, and have been dead longer than greens. These are things like dead leaves, sticks, twigs, straw, pine dust, pine needles, sawdust, and paper.
Los materiales marrones tienen un alto contenido de carbono. La mayoría de los marrones son leñosos, sólidos, secos y han estado muertos más tiempo que los verdes. Son cosas como hojas muertas, palos, ramitas, paja, acerrín, agujas de pino y papel.
So greens are high in nitrogen. Greens are typically lush, moist, and green or bright in color. These are things like food scraps and grass clippings.
Los materiales verdes tienen un alto contenido de nitrógeno. Típicamente son suculentos, húmedos y verdes o de otro color brillante. Son cosas como restos de comida y recortes de césped.
There are a few materials that folks should not put into their backyard compost bins. Things like bones, meat, cheese and other dairy products, oil, dog and cat excrement, and weeds.
Y hay algunos materiales que no se deben agregar al compost. Cosas como huesos, carne, queso y otros productos lácteos, aceite, excremento de perros y gatos y malas hierbas.
So the last rule of 3 applies to the size of the items that you should put in your bin or pile. Try to keep materials that you put into your bin under 3 inches in diameter. That way there's enough space in between particles to move air through while still breaking down quickly and reducing odor and not attracting wildlife to your compost.
La última regla de 3 tiene que ver con el tamaño de las cosas que se agregan al compost. Trate de añadir materiales que sean menos de 3 pulgadas de diámetro para que haya suficiente espacio entre las partículas. Esto ayuda a que se mueva el aire por el compost mientras que todavía se descompone todo rápido para reducir ambos el olor y la atracción de fauna silvestre.
All right, so I'm going to hold up a few items and in the chat, write whether the item is green, brown, or not compostable.
Voy a mostrarles algunas cosas. Escriban en el chat si la cosa es verde, marrón o no compostable.
All right, so our first item is a brown leaf. Brown material, green material, or not compostable. Sandra says brown. Jenna says compostable. Lovely. Yep. Perfect. It is a brown material. Awesome. Our next is a piece of kale. A little soggy, but it's a piece of kale. What do y'all think? Green, yes. Verde. Green. Okay, so this is going to be a green material. It is fresh, despite it's a little damp, but yeah, it's a wet, lush green material. The next is vegetable oil. What do y'all think? Green, brown, not compostable. Not compostable. Awesome, Tanya. Right, Jenna, made of vegetables, but not compostable. Awesome. Yes, that is not a compostable item. All right. This may be a tricky one. This is a banana peel that was left out a little bit today. It was eaten today. Green, brown, or not compostable? Awesome. Y'all are not tricked. This is a green material. It's brown and wet, but it still counts as green. Exactly. All right. How about newspaper? Okay, I'm seeing brown. Awesome, Dawn. Yes,
Marrón.
Sophia. Perfect. Yes, newspaper is a brown material. Awesome. Okay. I have some pine needles. Pine needles. Green, brown, not compostable. They're dried. Awesome. Yes. Brown. Perfect. All right. And our last item is some cheese. What do y'all think? Green, brown, not compostable. Are we gonna put our cheese in? Right, stinky cheese. No, thank you. We're not gonna put that into our compost bin. Perfect. All right, y'all are compost experts. Awesome. So when you have added the right balance of greens and browns and you wait for the decomposers to do their work, you're gonna know that your compost is ready to harvest when it is a rich, dark brown color, smells like earth, and crumbles in your hand. If there's still recognizable food or there's lots of large clumps in the pile, just give it a few more weeks and check it again.
Cuando hayas añadido el balance correcto de verdes y marrones y después de esperar para que los descomponedores hagan su trabajo, sabrás que su compost está listo cuando esté de color marrón oscuro, huela a la tierra y se desmorone en la mano. Si todavía quedan comidas reconocibles o grandes bultos en la pila, espere unas pocas semanas más y vuelva a chequearlo.
So you can manually separate the compost by using your hands to separate unfinished material from finished compost. You can also use a sieve or a screener to harvest compost as well.
Se puede usar las manos para separar el compost ya terminado del compost todavía no terminado. También se puede usar algún tipo de tamiz para filtrar el compost terminado.
So let's review our rule of threes.
Revisemos nuestras reglas de 3.
Remember, your compost bin should be at least 3 by 3 by 3, so it can maintain heat.
Acuérdense de que sus compostadores deben ser por lo menos 3 pies por 3 pies por 3 pies para que puedan mantener el calor.
Your compost bin is full of living things, so they need air, moisture, and food.
Recuerden que su contenedor de compost está lleno de organismos vivos y ellos necesitan aire, humedad y comida.
When adding food, add 2 parts of carbon or dry ingredients to every 1 part of green or fresh wet ingredients.
Agregue 2 partes marrones o secas por cada una parte verde o fresca mojada.
And remember, make sure that whatever you're putting in your bin is smaller than 3 inches in diameter.
Y asegúrense de que los materiales sean más pequeños de 3 pulgadas de diámetro.
Okay, students, let's review what we've learned today. When we started, we decided that we were going to learn who lives in our soil, what their special job is, why it's important, and how to help them. Let's review. Who lives in our soil? The FBI. Stay on mute and repeat after me. Fungus, bacteria, invertebrates. The FBI. Nice job. And we learned what their special job is. Their special job is to eat. They go munch, 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 and that's called Decomposition, decomposition, which means they break down, they break down. Nice work. We learned why this is so important. And that's because when they break big things like this into little things, it makes this compost. Dark and crumbly, rich and sweet compost. We also learned how to help them. We learned that they need home, food, water, and air. And we learned that the food they like, we can remember by saying, if it grows, it goes. This is the recipe they like to eat. 2 parts dry to 1 part wet. And then we just add it to the pot and let it all rot for compost stew. You have learned so much today. Thank you all so much for joining us, students. Okay, now students, let's chat as teachers. In the chat box, share any reflections you may have had about experiencing that lesson as a student, or if you can imagine, as a student learning English as a second language. What did you experience?
Maestros y maestras, en el chat, por favor, comparta con nosotros algunas reflexiones que tuvo usted mientras experimentó esa lección como estudiante, o como si fuera usted estudiante del idioma inglés.
And a few disclaimers or background information about the lessons. The content I taught today is typically 6 lessons, at least more than 6 lessons, not just 1 lesson. That was too much vocabulary in 1, but squeezed a lot in for you. I used parts of this content with grades pre-K all the way up through 8th grade. And also, of course, this content was taught virtually today, but imagine how it can be done even better when we do it in person.
De información de contexto, lo que acabo de enseñar hoy típicamente son por lo menos 6 lecciones y no solamente 1. Es demasiado para una lección. Yo utilizo diferentes partes de este contenido con grados desde pre-kinder hasta 8º. Y este contenido lo presentamos en Zoom hoy, obvio, pero claro que se puede enseñar aún mejor en persona.
So this lesson used the 10 key components of SDAIE, or Specially Designed Academic Instruction in English, to make grade level curriculum comprehensible to English language learners. It uses second language acquisition principles and combines that with quality teaching to make a lesson understandable.
Esta lección utilizó los 10 componentes clave de la especialmente diseñada instrucción académica en inglés, o Specially Designed Academic Instruction in English, para hacerlo comprensible para los estudiantes del idioma inglés. Se utilizan los principios de la adquisición de segundo idioma junto con la enseñanza de alta calidad para hacer la lección más comprensible.
Okay, so we're going to turn a screen share on and show the 10 key components on the screen. I'm seeing so many great reflections in the chat box, and continue to share any specific components you experienced and any details if you would like to.
Voy a mostrar los 10 componentes clave en la pantalla. En el chat, díganos cualquiera de los componentes específicos que usted experimentó, incluidos los detalles si quiere.
Great, I'm seeing a lot of great ideas in the chat already. Sandra mentioned that she liked the groupings and the structure, and that falls under this key number 2, having clear and simple learning goals. Having, instead of rattling off a whole bunch of information, say, we are going to learn 3. Here's 1, here's 2, here's 3. Rebecca mentioned the discovery and the experiential learning. That's a big part of it, and making that information accessible to everyone. Monica said the movement and the songs. You can see here on number 4, using multiple modalities is a great way to get kids involved in using new and bigger language. When the language has a rhythm to it, and when we repeat the language, when the language has motions to it, a kinesthetic part, we can remember that vocabulary. Let's see. Yeah, the songs definitely get stuck in our head. Great. These all look great. Yeah, and just a couple of other notes from SDAIE is one of the important components was at the very beginning when we created that learning environment by having everyone share with a question that was not a right or wrong answer. It was just a chance to hear everyone's voice. They could share in any language they wanted to. You could write, you could draw, but everyone gets a chance to share. Everyone has a spot at the table. You may have noticed that we had established procedures for participating. It may have sounded funny, but so often I said, when I say go, go. When I say go, go. Or 1, 2, 3, eyes on me. 1, 2, 3, eyes on, over and over and over again, using the same procedures for participating. So it's very clear. Also on here, you can see on number 2 that we were very intentional about the vocabulary that we used, and we took the time to introduce it. Used a lot of visuals and realia, which is like real life things that I can put in the camera and show you in real life what it is. We did some connecting to prior knowledge, some brainstorming. We did think, pair, share, modalities. Oh, breaking big instructions into smaller steps. You may have noticed at the very beginning how I said, go to speaker view, and we waited. Now hold up your paper, and we waited. One thing at a time, one instruction at a time, rather than, and this is all of these different components I should mention are great for all students, every single student in your classroom. And that would be different than saying like, okay, kids, now when I say go, you're going to switch to speaker view and get your paper and draw your picture and then give me a thumbs up when you're ready and put this in the chat box. And that's so much to remember, all the different steps. That's very important here. We used a lot of modeling while we made a model with real life objects. We had a lot of different ways to share our understanding, thumbs up or thumbs down, finger on your ear if you think you hear. On number 9 here, we did a lot of review. I think it was Sandra's husband that probably knows all of our songs by now because he was listening in, and we did them so often. We always reviewed and used that vocabulary over and over and over again. So this chart with these different ideas of how to use SDAIE components is going to be linked here in the chat and will be sent to you later, so that all of these ideas can be used throughout all of your lessons all throughout the school year. Okay, so we're getting close to the end here. We'd love to put up another poll or two before we open up the conversation to all of the teachers and all of the composters in the room. So for the first poll, please respond on the poll that pops up on your screen. After this workshop, how confident do you feel about composting in your home or school garden? This is about the composting part. How confident do you feel?
Por favor, responda a la encuesta que aparece en su pantalla. En una escala del 1 al 5, ¿qué tan seguros se sienten acerca del compostaje en su hogar o en el jardín de la escuela? Esto trata del compostaje.
Great, we have 92% participation. That looks great. Okay, and on our next poll, please respond on the next poll that pops up on your screen. After this workshop, on a scale from 1 to 5, How confident do you feel about teaching English language learners in your classroom?
Por favor, responda a la encuesta que aparece en la pantalla de nuevo. En una escala del 1 al 5, ¿qué tan seguros se sienten al enseñar a los estudiantes del idioma inglés en sus clases?
Wonderful. I see great progress here too.
So this was our first time facilitating this workshop, and we would greatly appreciate your feedback on what worked, what didn't. So please click the link in the chat to fill out the survey.
Esta fue la primera vez que nosotras facilitamos este taller y agradeceríamos enormemente sus comentarios sobre lo que funcionó, lo que les fue bien y lo que no. Por favor, haga clic en el enlace del chat para completar nuestra encuesta.
So we are only brushing the surface with both of our topics today. We encourage you to stick around and ask and answer some questions from each other about both composting and teaching.
Solamente rozamos la superficie de ambos temas hoy. Los alentamos a ustedes a quedarse y a hacerse preguntas sobre ambos, el compostaje y la enseñanza.
Thank you for joining us today.
Y gracias por unirse a nosotras hoy.